Why was the radio already screaming before anyone even looked at the map? The call cuts through the operations center like a blade. Not loud, not dramatic. Just urgent enough to make every heartbeat in the room hesitate. Any station, this is Viper 3-1. We're surrounded, taking heavy fire, multiple wounded. We need air support, now. The voice cracks on the last word. Not fear. Something worse. Resignation. Screens flicker, controllers lean forward, fingers fly across boards that suddenly feel useless. One by one, aircraft statuses turn red, down for maintenance, out of range, already engaged, too far, too late. 12 Marines are boxed inside a valley in Afghanistan. And there is nothing in the sky for them. Except one aircraft no one wants to talk about. At the far edge of the room, almost hidden by a pillar and a rack of helmets, Lieutenant Jessica Harper stands with her hands clasped behind her back. She hasn't spoken. No one has asked her to. She's learned that silence is safer here. Silence doesn't invite opinions. She's been at FOB Atlantis for 3 weeks. 3 weeks of mail runs. 3 weeks of supply drops. 3 weeks of being invisible. The combat pilots barely know her name. They know her nickname, though: bus driver, Amazon, logistics girl. The jokes always land soft enough to sound harmless, but they pile up, quiet weight, heavy enough to change how you stand. She doesn't look at the screens. She doesn't look at the officers arguing in low, tight voices. She watches the colonel instead, watches the way his jaw tightens as the truth settles in. There are no good options left. Sir, the air boss says carefully, like he's stepping onto thin ice. We do have one aircraft on the line, the Huey that just came back from transport duty. The room stills. Pilot, the colonel asks. A pause too long. Lieutenant Harper. Someone exhales sharply, someone else scoffs. The sound isn't loud, but it carries. That logistics pilot, a controller mutters. You want to send her into a hot LZ. Another voice follows. She'll get them killed. Jessica feels it before she hears it. That familiar tightening in her chest. Not anger, not surprise, just the quiet confirmation of something she's known all along. They're not thinking of her as a choice. They're thinking of her as a last mistake. The colonel doesn't look at her when he gives the order. His eyes stay on the map, on the blinking icon surrounded by red. Get Harper airborne. Her stomach drops. Not because she's afraid to fly, but because she knows exactly why they picked her. She isn't being sent because they trust her. She's being sent because there's no one else left. Jessica turns before anyone can see her face. She walks fast, controlled. Each step echoes too loudly in her own ears. Outside, the Afghan heat presses down like a held breath. The Huey's rotors are already starting to spin. Her crew chief, Sergeant Matanas, looks up when he sees her. He doesn't smile. He doesn't joke. He just nods once, sharp and professional. That nod steadies her more than any encouragement could. She climbs into the cockpit and straps in, hands moving through the checks on instinct alone. The Huey feels familiar beneath her, like a nervous animal waiting to be guided. The radio crackles. Harper Tower, be advised, the LZ is extremely hot. RPG fire confirmed. Recommend abort if you take any fire on approach. Translation: we don't think you can do this. Jessica keys the mic, voice calm enough to surprise even herself. Copy, Tower. She doesn't say anything else. The Huey lifts off, the ground falling away as the base shrinks beneath her. 8 minutes to the valley, 8 minutes for doubt to get loud. The radio fills with chaos. Viper 3-1 is down to half strength. They're out of grenades. Enemy fighters are closing from the east. A wounded Marine is fatting. Another is screaming. Jessica flies straight and level, eyes forward, jaw locked. The voices from flight school creep in. The instructor who told her she lacked the instincts for combat flying. The major who denied her tactical training request because logistics pilots didn't need it. The laughter in the ready room when she walked in late one night, covered in dust from a supply run. What if they were right? What if she gets there and freezes? What if 12 men die because she was never meant to be here? Her grip tightens on the controls. Then another voice cuts through the noise. Quieter, steadier. Anyone can fly when conditions are perfect, Jess. The real pilots are the ones who can fly when everything's falling apart. Her father's voice, clear as if he's sitting beside her. She grew up in rural Alaska, where weather didn't ask permission and terrain didn't forgive mistakes. Her father didn't teach her to fly by instruments alone. He taught her to feel the aircraft, to read wind off rock faces, to trust her hands when the gauges lied. At 14, she learned how to land on ground that wasn't meant to be landed on. At 19, she watched him bring a failing helicopter down the side of a mountain in a blizzard with a family in the back. No panic, no wasted motion. 2 months later, he died in his sleep. Jessica joined the military to honor him, to become the kind of pilot who shows up when no one else can. Somewhere along the way, she learned that being quiet was safer than fighting for space in rooms that didn't want her voice. But she never stopped preparing. The valley appears ahead, narrow, steep, smoke curling upward like a warning, tracer fire streaks through the air. Viper 3-1, this is Rescue 7-1. 2 minutes out, mark your position. The Marine's reply comes fast and ragged. We're in a dry riverbed north side of the valley. You cannot land here. RPGs in the rocks above us. The controller cuts in. Harper, abort. You can't extract if you can't land. Jessica doesn't answer. She drops into the valley at speed. The Huey shudders as she pushes it beyond what's comfortable, beyond what's expected. She sees it now, the Marines pinned low, surrounded on 3 sides, enemy fighters high in the rocks. A normal approach would get her killed. So she doesn't fly normal. She banks hard, hugging the canyon wall so close the rock seems to breathe beside her. Matanas gasps. "Ma'am, you're too close. Trust me." She drops lower, using the terrain to mask her approach, flying the shadow. The enemy looks up, scanning empty sky, never thinking to look beneath them. Jessica rises fast, flares hard, and holds the Huey in a hover above the riverbed. "I can't land," she says, "but I can hold, load the wounded now." Gunfire erupts. The Huey takes hits, metal screams. Warning lights bloom across her panel like angry stars. 1 Marine, 2, 4. An RPG flashes past the tail rotor. "Ma'am, we need to go." "Not without all of them." The engine temperature spikes, oil pressure drops. 8 Marines, 10. The Huey is dying. Her hands don't shake. They don't shake because this isn't the first time she's flown with everything going wrong. This is the moment she's been training for since she was a child. Last 2 coming up. Her father's voice is there again, steady, calm. "Fly anyway." And she does. What happens when the machine keeping everyone alive decides it's had enough? The Huey shudders again, harder this time, like an animal warning before it collapses. The vibration crawls up through the pedals into Jessica's boots, through her spine. It isn't subtle anymore. The aircraft is telling the truth now. It's running out of forgiveness. 11 aboard, someone yells from the back. Gunfire chews the air around them. The sound is constant now, not sharp cracks but a tearing roar like fabric being ripped open by angry hands. Matanas is firing back, controlled bursts, jaw clenched so tight his teeth ache. He isn't praying, not yet. He's counting, rounds, seconds, chances. Jessica keeps the hover. Her arms burn, not from fear, from precision. Every microadjustment costs something now. The Huey wants to drift, wants to sag, wants to give in to gravity, and gravity is patient. Gravity always wins eventually. She doesn't let it, not yet. Last man coming up. The words hit her chest like a weight. Last. That means if she loses the hover now, it's not just an aborted extraction. It's a body left behind. A name that won't make it home. A family that will never hear the end of the story. Her father's voice doesn't speak this time, it just exists. A presence. Calm, expectant, like he's watching her hands, not her fear. The final Marine is hauled aboard, boots scraping metal, hands slipping on blood and sweat. The cabin door slams shut. Rescue 7-1, we're green, all 12 aboard. Jessica exhales once, just once. Then the engine coughs. It isn't dramatic, no explosion, no fireball, just a stutter like a tired heart skipping a beat. The warning lights don't scream, they glow, steady, red, honest. Oil pressure is dropping fast. Matana sees it and swallows. Ma'am, we're losing her. I know. She doesn't climb. Climbing would expose them. Climbing would make them a target painted against open sky. Instead, she noses forward and dives deeper into the canyon, pushing the Huey into the narrow throat of rock ahead. It looks wrong. It feels wrong. Everything in standard training says don't do this. Don't commit to terrain you can't escape. But Jessica isn't thinking in checklists. She's thinking in memories. Snowblind mountains, whiteout conditions. Her father's hands steady on the cyclic as the world disappeared outside the windshield. Terrain is protection if you respect it, Jess. The canyon walls close in. The sound changes. Gunfire echoes, confused now, bouncing uselessly off stone. Enemy rounds snap overhead, too high, too late. They didn't expect this. They expected panic. They expected retreat. They didn't expect commitment. The Huey screams through the canyon, rotors slicing air so tight it feels like the rock might grab them. Matana stops talking. He grips the frame with one hand, the gun with the other. His eyes are open, but he isn't blinking. In the back, the Marines are silent. Not calm, focused. They can feel it too, the way the aircraft is being held together by will and skill instead of systems. They don't shout encouragement. They don't scream fear. They brace. They trust, because trust is the only currency left. The canyon narrows again. Too narrow. Jessica sees it instantly, measures it without numbers. The gap ahead isn't meant for this aircraft, not with a wounded engine, not with weight on board. Her heart stutters just once. Not now. She adjusts, millimeters, degrees. She leans the Huey into the turn, skimming one wall so close the paint almost kisses stone. The rotor tips flex. The air turns violent. The Huey bucks like it wants to be free of her. She doesn't let go. They burst out of the canyon into open air so suddenly it feels unreal. Light floods the cockpit. For one breathless second, it feels like escape. Then the engine screams. Not sputtering now, failing. Oil pressure hits critical. Transmission temperature spikes into red. The alarms overlap, a mechanical choir of bad news. Matana shouts, voice hoarse, "Ma'am, we're not making it back to base." Jessica already knows. She's known since the first cough. She scans the terrain below, eyes sharp, mind racing faster than fear ever could. Hostile ground, rugged rock, no clear landing zones, no friendly positions. Then she sees it. A plateau, barely a scar on the landscape, too small, too uneven, covered in rock and dust. It isn't a landing zone, it's barely ground. But it's there. That, she says quietly. Matanas follows her gaze, his breath catches. "Ma'am, that's all we've got." She keys the intercom. "Everyone hold on, this is going to be rough." No one argues. She brings the nose around, fighting the controls as the Huey resists, heavy and wounded. Every second costs altitude. Every second the engine loses another fragment of itself. Her arms are shaking now, not with fear, with exhaustion, with effort, with the weight of 12 lives pulling down through the seat. The plateau rushes up faster than she wants. Too fast. She flares hard, too hard. The Huey bucks violently, momentum slamming through the frame. For one horrifying instant, gravity tips them sideways. The world tilts. The Marines gasp as one. This is the moment where it goes wrong. This is the moment people talk about afterward. Jessica feels it happening and reacts without thinking. Pedals, cyclic, collective. A dozen corrections in a heartbeat, each one instinctive, each one expensive. She doesn't fight the aircraft. She listens to it, feels where it wants to go, guides it just enough. The skids hit rock. They bounce. Once, twice. The Huey screams metal on stone as it slides, tilting, threatening to roll. Jessica forces the nose down, counters the slide, drags the aircraft into compliance. Then it stops. The engine dies with a final shudder, like a long breath released. Silence crashes down. No alarms, no gunfire, no radio chatter. Just breathing. For a second, no one speaks. No one moves. The world feels fragile, like sound itself might break it. Then a voice from the back, half laughing, half disbelieving. Holy hell, she actually did it. Another Marine exhales. That was insane. Matana stares at Jessica like he's seeing a ghost, or a miracle, or something that doesn't fit into neat categories anymore. Ma'am, he says softly, almost reverent, where the hell did you learn to fly like that? Jessica doesn't answer. Her hands are still on the controls, still steady, still holding a machine that no longer needs holding. She reaches for the radio. Mayday, mayday. Rescue 7-1 is down but intact. 12 Marines aboard. We need immediate extraction and medevac. Her voice doesn't shake. Only after she releases the mic does the weight hit her. The ache, the delayed fear, the realization that if she had been a fraction slower, a fraction less stubborn, this plateau would be a grave instead of a refuge. Outside, the wind moves dust across the rocks. Inside, 12 men are alive. Jessica closes her eyes for just a moment. Not in triumph. In quiet gratitude. Because sometimes survival isn't loud. Sometimes it's just the sound of an engine finally stopping, after it's given everything it had left. How do you come down from a moment when death backed away and let you pass? The first thing Jessica notices is the ringing. Not alarms. Not gunfire. Just that dull, high whine inside her ears, like her body hasn't caught up with reality yet. She forces herself to breathe. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. The Huey sits crooked on the plateau, skids bent, engine dead, rotors slowly ticking to a stop as heat escapes metal. Outside, the Afghan wind moves dust in thin sheets, whispering across rock. No cover. No concealment. Just open ground and a crippled aircraft that might as well be a flare saying, "Here we are." Security, someone calls from the back. The Marines move fast despite their wounds. Muscle memory. Pain set aside. Weapons up. A perimeter forms almost instinctively around the downed Huey. These are men who know what happens next if the enemy realizes what just landed in their backyard. Jessica unstraps and climbs out of the cockpit, boots crunching on stone. Her legs feel strange, not weak, just distant, like they belong to someone else. Matana's follows, eyes scanning the ridgelines. "We bought ourselves time," he mutters. "Not much." She nods. Time has always been the currency of survival. Her father used to say that. You don't defeat danger, you negotiate with it. You buy seconds, sometimes minutes, and if you're lucky, help arrives before the bill comes due. Jessica moves to the side of the Huey and looks at it properly for the first time. It's worse than she thought. The engine cowling is shredded. Oil stains the rock beneath. The tail boom has a hairline crack running along it like a fault line waiting to give way. This aircraft will never fly again. She knows that with the same certainty she knows her own name. And she feels nothing. No grief. No pride. Just acceptance. Because machines are meant to be spent, people aren't. She keys her radio again, adjusting the antenna, angling her body to get a cleaner signal. Rescue 7-1 to any station. We're down on a plateau, grid follows. Static, then a voice, faint but blessedly real. Rescue 7-1, this is Atlas Actual, we read you. Chinook is en route, ETA approximately 2 hours. 2 hours? Jessica swallows. Copy, she says, we'll hold. She turns to the Marines. Some are sitting now, backs against rock, faces pale beneath dirt and sweat. Medics work with brutal efficiency. Tourniquets, bandages, low voices, controlled hands. These men were dying 30 minutes ago. Now they're alive on borrowed time. A Staff Sergeant Kalski, according to the patch, limps over, rifle slung, eyes sharp. He studies Jessica for a moment, not rudely, assessing. You the pilot? He asks. Yes, Sergeant. He nods once, good flying. That's it. No speeches, no dramatics, just acknowledgement, from a man who understands exactly what almost didn't happen. They take positions, they wait. Waiting is always worse. Jessica sits on a rock a few meters from the Huey, back straight, helmet resting beside her. The adrenaline is draining now, leaving behind the ache. Her shoulders burn. Her hands feel bruised, even though they're not. She stares at the horizon. This is usually the part where fear arrives late, demanding attention, where the what-ifs line up like ghosts. What if the enemy saw them land? What if reinforcements are already moving? What if the Chinook doesn't make it in time? She lets the thoughts come, then she lets them pass. Her father taught her that too. You don't argue with fear, you acknowledge it, then you fly anyway. Minutes stretch, the sun creeps, shadows shift. At some point, Matanas sits beside her, offering a canteen. She drinks. The water tastes like metal and dust and life. You okay, ma'am? He asks quietly. She considers the question. I think so, she says, it's honest. He studies her face. You didn't hesitate back there, not once. She looks down at her hands. I was terrified. He snorts softly. Could have fooled me. That's the point, she replies. He doesn't push. He just nods, respect settling into his posture like something earned. The Chinook arrives as a distant thump on the horizon, low and steady. The sound carries hope with it, heavy and unmistakable. When it finally crests the ridge, the Marines visibly relax for the first time. Extraction is fast, loud, efficient. Wounded first, then weapons, then personnel. Jessica is the last one aboard, as always. She looks back once at the wrecked Huey before stepping into the Chinook's belly. Thank you, she thinks. And goodbye. The flight back to Fob Atlantis is quiet. No one cheers, no one claps. The Marines are exhausted, medics work, crew chiefs focus. Jessica sits strapped in, hands resting on her thighs, staring at the floor. That's when it hits her. Not the fear. Not the relief. The weight. 12 lives are breathing because of decisions she made alone in a cockpit. Not theory, not training scenarios. Real people, real families. She presses her lips together, fighting the unexpected sting behind her eyes. She doesn't cry. Not because she's strong. Because she doesn't know how yet. When the Chinook touches down at Fob Atlantis, word has already spread. The ramp lowers to a wall of sound, engines, shouting, boots, radios, then something else. Silence. People are watching. Controllers, pilots, mechanics, officers, faces she's seen every day without ever really being seen by. She steps off the ramp, helmet under her arm. The colonel is there. He doesn't smile. He doesn't posture. He just looks at her, really looks like he's recalibrating something he thought he understood. "Lieutenant Harper," he says, voice formal but different, "walk with me." They move a few steps away from the crowd. "I've been flying for 23 years," he continues. "I've seen pilots freeze. I've seen them panic. I've seen them make selfish calls under pressure." He pauses. "What you did today," he shakes his head slowly, "that wasn't luck." Jessica doesn't speak. "You saved 12 Marines under impossible conditions with a crippled aircraft," he finishes. "That was the finest piece of flying I've witnessed in my career." The words land heavy. Not because she wanted them, but because she never expected them. Behind him, applause starts. Not polite, not forced, real, thunderous. It rolls across the tarmac like a wave. Pilots who laughed at her. Controllers who doubted her. Crew she barely knew. They're clapping. Matana steps forward. "Ma'am," he says, voice thick, "I've flown with a lot of pilots. You're the best I've ever seen." A familiar figure approaches, Major Reeves, the one who once joked she should stick to male runs. He looks uncomfortable, honest. "Harper," he says, "I owe you an apology. I was wrong." She nods once, apology accepted. He hesitates. "Where did you learn to fly like that? That canyon run, that landing that wasn't standard?" "My father," she says quietly. "He flew bush planes in Alaska." Reeves lets out a low whistle. Figures. Then, after a beat, "If you ever want to transition to combat aviation, I'll sponsor you personally." Jessica doesn't answer right away. Because for the first time, the question isn't whether she's capable. It's whether that's what she wants. Later, much later, when the base settles and night cools the air, she finds herself back on the flight line. The wrecked Huey sits under floodlights, stripped and silent, a machine that gave everything it had. Matanas joins her again, hands in his pockets. "You gonna tell me more about your dad?" he asks. She smiles softly. "He taught me that courage isn't being fearless, it's flying anyway." He nods. "You were scared." "Every second." He chuckles. "Could have fooled everyone." Jessica looks up at the stars. The same stars her father used to navigate by when instruments failed and the world disappeared. For years, she let people underestimate her because it was easier than demanding belief. Today, she learned something different. You don't need permission to act. You don't need applause to matter. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts. What happens after the applause fades and the noise finally stops? Jessica learns the answer the next morning. It's quiet in a way that feels unfamiliar. No alarms, no radios crackling with urgency, just the low hum of generators and the distant clatter of a base waking up. She sits on the edge of her bunk, boots unlaced, helmet resting upside down on the floor like a question no one's asking. Sleep didn't come easily. When it did, it was thin and sharp-edged. She kept dreaming of the canyon, not the gunfire, not the landing, but the moment right after. The silence. The way everything could have gone wrong and didn't. That's the part that stays with her. She heads to the chow hall early, hopping to be invisible again. Old habits don't disappear overnight, but invisibility isn't available anymore. Conversations pause as she enters. Heads turn. Someone nudges someone else. Not mocking this time, curious. Respectful, careful even. It makes her uncomfortable in a way she didn't expect. She just wanted to fly. She grabs coffee and sits alone, back against the wall, watching steam rise from the cup. Her hands are steady. That surprises her more than anything. Yesterday they held 12 lives. Today they just hold heat. A Marine steps into her line of sight. Kalski. He looks cleaner now, bandaged, still tired but standing, alive in a way that feels intentional. "Lieutenant," he says. She stands automatically. "Sergeant." He waves her back down. "Relax, this isn't formal." He sits across from her, resting his forearms on the table. For a moment he just studies her, like he's choosing words carefully. "My guys, they're going to make it," he says finally. "Docs say everyone pulls through." Jessica nods, a tight feeling pressing behind her ribs. "That's good to hear." He shakes his head slightly. "No, it's more than good, it's everything." Silence stretches between them. "We heard the chatter," he continues. "Heard what people were saying about you on the radio, that you shouldn't be there, that you weren't ready." Her jaw tightens. "You came anyway," he says. "You flew into hell with a dying bird and didn't leave until we were all on board." He stands and straightens, then does something unexpected. He salutes. Not regulation, not sharp, real, the kind that carries weight. "Thank you," he says simply. Jessica returns it, slower, deliberate. After he leaves, she sits there for a long time, coffee untouched. She doesn't feel proud. She feels seen, and that's more disorienting than fear ever was. Later in the operations center, she's called in for debrief. The room looks the same, maps, screens, chairs, but it feels different. Or maybe she does. They ask technical questions. Altitude, approach angles, engine readings. She answers cleanly, precisely. No embellishment, no dramatics. When they ask why she chose the canyon dive instead of climbing out, she pauses. "Because climbing would have killed us," she says. "The terrain was the only cover we had." Someone nods, someone else scribbles notes. No one laughs. When it's over, the colonel dismisses her, then adds quietly, "Lieutenant, you should know your record is being reviewed." She doesn't ask what that means. She walks out into sunlight, unsure whether to feel hopeful or exposed. In the days that follow, things change in small ways. Pilots she's never spoken to ask her opinion. Controllers use her call sign without sarcasm. Someone replaces the handwritten "bus driver" sign on the ready room fridge with nothing at all. It's strange how quickly the air can shift. But not everything changes. At night, when the base quiets and the stars come out, Jessica feels the weight settle back in. The delayed cost. The questions that didn't matter when adrenaline was in control. What if she had been wrong? What if next time she is? She finds herself back on the flight line more often, standing near the grounded Huey's stripped remains. It's scheduled to be shipped out, written off as a loss. A machine reduced to parts and paperwork. She rests a hand on the cool metal one evening, eyes closed. "You did good," she thinks. It isn't a boast, it's a thank you. Matanas joins her again like he always seems to. "You ever think about what you want next?" he asks. She considers it. "For a long time," she says, "I just wanted to survive this deployment without making waves. And now," she looks up at the sky, "now I think maybe I stopped myself too early." He smiles just a little. "About time." The offer from Major Reeves sits in her mind like an unopened letter. Combat aviation, transition, more responsibility, more risk. More moments where everything could go wrong. She doesn't decide yet. Because growth, she's learning, doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it watches to see if you'll step forward without being pushed. One evening, a junior pilot approaches her near the hangars, nervous, hesitant. "Ma'am," she says, "I just wanted to say, seeing what you did out there, it matters for people like me." Jessica studies her, sees the uncertainty, the quiet determination, the same calculation she used to make every day. "Keep flying," Jessica says, "even when they don't expect much from you." The pilot nods, eyes bright. That night, lying in her bunk, Jessica stares at the ceiling as the base settles around her. She thinks of her father, of Alaska, of flying into places no one else would go. She realizes something then. Being underestimated didn't make her strong. Surviving it did. And strength, real strength, isn't proven once. It's chosen again and again. What do you do when the moment that defined you is over? but the echo of it won't let you rest. Jessica doesn't find the answer right away. The days blur together in a strange new rhythm. She's no longer invisible, but she isn't comfortable being seen either. Pilots greet her by name now. Controllers look up when she speaks. There's a pause before jokes, like people are measuring their words for the first time. Respect has weight, heavier than disregard in some ways. She's assigned back to logistics flying, at least on paper. Mail runs, supply lifts, familiar routes, safe routes, but nothing feels the same. Every vibration in the aircraft feels louder. Every engine note carries memory. She catches herself scanning terrain differently now, calculating angles, exit paths, what if scenarios that never used to demand attention. Once you've flown on the edge, you don't unlearn it. One afternoon, she's called into a small briefing room. No audience, no ceremony, just the colonel and Major Reeves. The door closes behind her with a soft click that somehow sounds final. Reeves gets straight to it. We've reviewed your flight history, training scores, yesterday's mission. He slides a folder across the table. It's thin, too thin for something that heavy. We want to fast-track you into tactical rotary wing training, he continues. Combat insertion, extraction, high-threat environments. Jessica doesn't touch the folder. The colonel watches her carefully. This isn't an order, it's an offer. Silence stretches. This is what everyone assumes she wants: recognition, advancement, proof. But her mind drifts somewhere else. To the plateau. To the way the Huey felt in her hands as it died. To the Marines breathing behind her. She looks up. If I say yes, I won't get to choose when the next call comes, will I? Reeves shakes his head. No. And when it comes, she continues, people will assume I can always pull it off. The colonel nods slowly. That's part of it. She leans back, exhales. Then I need to be honest. I was terrified out there. Reeves smiles faintly. So was every good pilot I've ever known. She considers that. I don't want to be brave once, she says quietly. I want to be useful when it matters. The colonel's gaze sharpens. Those two things aren't as different as you think. Jessica finally reaches for the folder. I'll do the training, she says, but I want to keep flying logistics too. People still need support when the cameras aren't on. Reeves chuckles. Fair enough. After the meeting, she walks the long way back to the flight line. The sun is low, painting everything gold. She pauses near a hangar where junior crew members are working on a bird, laughter bouncing off metal. She remembers being the quiet one, the one people overlooked. That memory doesn't sting anymore. Later that night, she gets a message routed through ops. Viper 3-1 requests permission to visit. They find her near the edge of the base, sitting on a crate, watching the horizon. Kalski walks up first, slower now, still healing. The others hang back awkward, uncertain how to approach someone who changed their lives without ever meeting them properly. We didn't want to leave without saying goodbye, Kalski says. She stands. You don't owe me anything. He shakes his head. That's where you're wrong. One by one, the Marines step forward. No speeches, no theatrics, just hands on shoulders, quiet thanks, shared looks that say we remember. One of them, barely older than a kid, clears his throat. Ma'am, I was the last one up the rope. Jessica freezes. I thought I was dead, he continues softly. I could hear the engine failing. I could hear people yelling, but when I looked up, you were just there, steady, like nothing could move you. Her throat tightens. I didn't know your name then, he says, but I won't forget it now. After they leave, Jessica sits alone again, the night wrapping around her. The base lights flicker. Somewhere an aircraft lifts off. She thinks of her father. He never chased recognition, never sought approval. He just flew where he was needed until one day he didn't come home. For the first time, she allows herself to feel the fear she pushed aside. not of dying, of becoming defined by one perfect moment. Because real service isn't about the story people tell afterward. It's about showing up again, and again, and again. She stands, brushing dust from her hands. Tomorrow training begins. Tomorrow expectations will be higher. But tonight she lets herself be human. Because strength doesn't come from being unafraid. It comes from choosing to carry the weight and flying anyway. What happens when the world stops watching, but the choice to act still remains? Jessica learns the answer months later, on a night that doesn't make the news. The base is quieter now. Different rotation, different faces, new jokes, new doubts wearing familiar expressions. The desert wind hasn't changed, though. It still moves the same way across the flight line, carrying dust and memory in equal measure. She's no longer the logistics pilot no one notices. She's also not a legend. Time has a way of sanding stories down until they fit into smaller boxes. That's fine with her. She prefers it that way. Her days are split now, training flights that push her limits, combat prep that strips mistakes bare, and logistics runs that remind her why she started flying in the first place, because someone somewhere needs something delivered when it matters. Some nights she dreams of Alaska. Not the blizzard, not the crash landings, just the quiet hum of an engine cutting through open sky, her father beside her, hands loose on the controls. Other nights she dreams of the canyon. Those dreams don't scare her anymore. They remind her. The call comes just before dawn. Not frantic, not desperate, controlled, professional. A patrol is pinned down in rough terrain. Not 12 Marines this time, fewer, still enough. Weather moving in, air support limited, a routine problem wrapped in non-routine consequences. There are other pilots available. That's the difference now. Jessica sits in the briefing room, listening, feeling the familiar tightening in her chest. She could let someone else take it. No one would question that. She's already proven enough, already done her impossible thing. She catches her reflection in the dark screen of a powered-down monitor. Quiet, focused, still afraid. Good. Fear means she's paying attention. I'll take it, she says. No one argues. The flight is uneventful at first, the kind of uneventful that makes people careless if they let it. Jessica doesn't. She never does. She flies like the world can change in a heartbeat, because it can. When they reach the patrol, conditions worsen. Winds shift. Visibility drops. Nothing catastrophic, just enough friction to demand decisions. She makes them. Clean, calm, efficient. No canyon dives. No dying engines, just judgment, experience, restraint. The patrol is extracted without drama, without applause, without anyone ever knowing how close it could have gone the other way. Back at base, as the aircraft powers down, Matana's, older now, still steady, gives her a look. Good flight, he says. She nods, yeah. That's it. Later, alone on the flight line, Jessica watches the sun climb over the horizon. Gold spills across metal and dust and concrete. Another day beginning. Another ending no one will mark. She thinks about the young pilot who once thanked her for showing what was possible. About the Marines who went home because she refused to quit a hover. About the father who taught her that flying wasn't about the sky, it was about responsibility. She understands something now she didn't before. That day in the canyon didn't make her who she is. It revealed it. Strength wasn't the daring maneuver. Courage wasn't the broken aircraft. Redemption wasn't the applause. Those were moments. What matters is what came after. Choosing restraint when ego whispers. Choosing preparation when recognition fades. Choosing to show up when no one is counting. Jessica walks back toward the hangars as the base fully wakes. Somewhere, another quiet woman stands against a wall, hands clasped behind her back, waiting for a chance she doesn't know is coming yet. Jessica passes her and pauses. "You fly today?" she asks. The woman nods. "Yes, ma'am." "Good," Jessica says. "Fly like it matters, even if no one's watching." The woman smiles, confused but encouraged. Jessica keeps walking. She doesn't need them to remember her name. Because dignity doesn't announce itself. It doesn't demand belief. It doesn't wait for permission. Sometimes it just climbs into the cockpit, lifts off, and does the work. And when the moment comes, when lives hang in the balance and the world looks away, it acts.